This cake is it's like magic cake. It takes 5 minutes. It doesn't take any special ingredients. Like if you don't know how to bake gluten-free, this is the cake that you make. Are you ready for your mind to be absolutely blown? If you wanna surprise your guests that something's gluten-free, this is the cake to make. I cannot wait for you to see how easy it is. Let's make it. Okay, so it starts with oat flour. Honestly, I never buy oat flour. I just use my blender and make my own. You need gluten-free oats for a gluten-free cake. If you don't need a gluten-free cake, you could use regular oats too. It's 2 cups of oats, or if you're making it with oat flour by hand, not using a blender, it would be 2 cups of oat flour. So just pour these in, and we're just gonna blend it up until it's nice and fine. So once you have your oat flour, then we're just gonna add in the rest of the dry ingredients. Oats do not have any gluten. There's no binding agent in it. So I add a little something to help the crumb in my oat flour recipes. And just because I always have it in my kitchen, I use cornstarch. Now, if for some reason you cannot have cornstarch, then something like tapioca starch would also work well. So I just add 2 tablespoons of that, and then 1/4 cup of packed brown sugar, 1/2 cup of sugar, a teaspoon of cinnamon. But if you want to do more of like a spiced cake version, you can also add like ground ginger, ground nutmeg, little cloves for like an old-fashioned spice cake. 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and then I'm just gonna blend that up again. So now we just add our liquid ingredients. So 3/4 cup of milk. You could use any type of milk that you would like. 1/2 cup of yogurt. Obviously you could use dairy-free yogurt, but I've also done sour cream. You could probably even honestly use cottage cheese in here too. It would have the same effect. 1/4 cup of oil, any oil that you prefer. 2 teaspoons of vanilla. I'm just gonna eyeball that. And then 2 eggs. I'm gonna combine this. You're gonna notice that the oat flour is gonna kind of stick to the sides of the blender. I'm gonna stop halfway through and scrape it down. If you were doing this by hand without a blender, you would just mix all this stuff up in a mixing bowl with a hand mixer. So at this point, the batter, you're gonna question things. It's gonna be suspicious looking, but that's how it should look. It looks very thin, but oats absorb the bejesus out of liquid. So as it bakes, it will continue to absorb that moisture and you will be good to go, I promise. The last thing we're gonna add is another 1/3 cup of just rolled oats. And I put those in there, and then I'm just gonna pulse quickly to combine. And those aren't so much to grind up, it's just another thing to help absorb that moisture. So that is it. That is your cake batter. It all came together in a blender, less than 5 minutes. At this point, I let the batter sit before I pour it into my greased baking pan. And the reason why I do that is because, like you saw, the batter's really thin. It needs a little extra time to have the oats absorb all that moisture. So just let it sit for 10 minutes, and then we're gonna pour it into our baking pan. Your baking pan options are, you could do a greased 8x8 inch pan or a 9x9 inch pan as well. So after 10 minutes, you'll see there's a difference in the batter. It's a little bit thicker. It's still on the thin side, but it's definitely not as thin as it was. It has a longer baking time. It's 350 for about 35 to 40 minutes, but I've also noticed, well, if you do a 9x9 inch pan, then it'll be more in the 35 range. If you do a metal pan, it might bake a little faster. So you just have to use, I would use a long toothpick or like a cake tester just to make sure that it's cooked all the way through. For the frosting, it just starts with 2 tablespoons of butter. We're gonna melt that over low heat with 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. I like the combo of the brown sugar with, later we're gonna add powdered sugar because it kind of gives it a little bit of a caramely taste. which pairs well with the flavor of the cake. So just stir that to combine. You're looking for the sugar to kind of dissolve in with the butter, because otherwise then you'll kind of get a gritty texture with the brown sugar. So that's why I like to melt it together. Once that's nice and smooth, then I'm just gonna remove that from the heat, and then we'll just finish it off in this pan. Then to that, we're gonna add 1 3/4 cup of powdered sugar, and then you'll need about 2 to 3 tablespoons of milk. So I recommend start with the lesser, add about 2 tablespoons of milk. Combine that and see what the consistency is. You want it thick but spreadable. If you need more milk, then just add the extra splash. If you over thinned it, then just add a little bit more powdered sugar. And that is the frosting. It's super easy, but super yummy. Another frosting option that would go well with this cake is a cream cheese frosting, or you could do like a buttercream frosting, a simple glaze, powdered sugar milk glaze, or just sprinkle it if you just want like a snack cake. You could just sprinkle it with a dusting of powdered sugar, works well too. So like I mentioned, you really want to make sure that the cake's done before you pull it out of the oven. I like using cake testers because they're really long and skinny. You can kind of get down in there. The top will start to crack a little bit and it'll be set all the way through. So even in the middle, when you push down on it, it should bounce back. Make sure your cake is cool completely before spreading the frosting on, and then just pour it on and spread. So you could go a little bit wild with this cake. You could add mini chocolate chips, you could add raisins, like I mentioned before. You could do a spiced version. Shredded coconut would be good. It is really versatile. It's an amazing cake. It tastes like a grandma's old-fashioned cake. Please, please try this recipe and see for yourself how amazing it is. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video.